Welcome to the Round 6 Podcast, a weekly roundtable discussion featuring a variety of automotive subjects, interviews, special guests, and stories, hosted by the Round 6 Gearheads, Brian Stupsky, Alex Welsh, and Brad King. On episode 24, the Gearheads dig into the science of branding with action sports and automotive pioneer, TV producer, podcast host, and designer, Brad Fanshaw. Welcome to the Round 6 Podcast. I'm Brian.
I'm Brad.
I'm Alex.
And with us tonight is the host of the Shift and Steer and Man Seeks Adventure podcasts, the one and only Brad Fanshaw. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Don't call me sir, though. It makes me feel like I'm so old. Even though I am, you don't have to rub it in.
No, we figured out you're 29, celebrating your 29th birthday.
There you go. Yep. So, no, I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me back. I know we tried this once before, but second time's a charm, right?
We got better cans and string this time. See, it's a little more high tech. We're using fishing line this time.
Second dates are always better.
Yes, yeah.
It depends. It depends on the
date.
Just
don't fill me up, okay?
Well, we can't do that. So, hey, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast tonight.
This guy won't put out, so no, that's it.
Yeah.
So,
and to think I was going to take you with me over to the Shrek 40 ride.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not going to give that up.
We talked about that. Your love of bugs but I just can't figure out, are you talking like VW bugs, or are you talking about the kind that like crawl between your toes at the beach?
Ooh, well, let's, how about we go with both?
Who here's a bug guy? Are you guys into bugs?
Yeah.
V-dubs?
First car was a bug. Yeah, I still have a special place for them.
I never had one, and every once in a while I've wanted to build like the ultimate Baja bug, because I spent a summer in San Diego with a friend once on Coronado Island, and at about midnight, he'd go, this guy's name was Rusty, he'd go, hey man, let's go down to the beach. And I'd go, okay, what for? And he goes, oh, there's this dude lives down at the other end, and he has this Baja bug, and about midnight, he drives it down onto the beach. And this was probably like 1984, when you could still get away with stuff like that. And here was this badass Baja bug with Jackman wheels on it, and the guy just would be ripping up and down the beach, going into the water, going sideways, early form of drifting, you know. And then the next day we saw this car in the daylight, and it's one of those cars, you know how they leave an impression on you? I mean, because it had like a grab handle for the passenger that had Oakley motorcycle grips on it, you know, and it was like, it was just cool. It was cool. Big extractor pipe and everything. And that's the kind of stuff that gets you, when you remember it your whole life, you kind of think that thing left an impression.
Yeah.
That's bitch. So now you were about how old at that point?
29. No.
Again, so you're a vampire. Okay.
Again.
Yeah, exactly. I have a painting up in my attic, and it ages. I don't. No. I probably would have been about, 17 about that time. Okay. And so it was, it was one of those where you just go, that dude's got a cool car. I wish I could have something like that.
So is that the first car that left that kind of an impression on you? Or did you have something maybe earlier in life that did that too?
No, that was the first one on the beach in California that left an impression like that. But no, the first car I ever had, I'm a muscle car guy. And even though all my years at Boyd's and, being around some of the most influential hot rods ever and like that, I'm still a muscle car guy at heart. And my very first car, my dad came home when I was 15 years old. We were living in Omaha, Nebraska, and my dad came home and he goes, hey, I've got a buddy who's got a car for sale. And he goes, I don't know if you'd be interested, and I know you've been saving up for something. And I go, oh, really? And, Dad comes home. It's not usually that exciting. You figure, it's going to be a Valiant or, something like that. And I go, And he goes, I could take you over. I got to go over to Iowa and look, go over and see him next week. And I go, well, what is it? And he goes, it's a Chevelle Super Sport. That's about all he had to say. And I was there, I was like, yeah. And so it was a 67 Chevelle Super Sport, that SS 396 car that somebody had ordered. And this guy was the second owner. So I'm the third owner of the car. And the original guy who had ordered it, the only reason he ordered a Super Sport was, and I got to talk to the original owner, and he told me, he goes, the only reason I ordered it was my wife and I wanted to tow a trailer, and it had a big motor in it. So this guy ordered a SS 396 car with a factory bench seat and a power glide. And it had like every option. It had, well, I'm not going to say every option because it didn't have, air conditioning or anything like that, but it was kind of optioned out, and it was a great car in high school because that thing with the big block and the power glide, it was fast, drag race and stuff like that. So that's kind of the one that, and it stuck with me. I still have it.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's freaking awesome.
It's not that unusual. If you know me, I'm kind of a pack rat. I don't get rid of a whole lot of stuff.
So did you keep the power glide and the bench seat and all that stuff in there as well? Still got all that?
Well, here's one of the reasons I still have it. There's two reasons I still have it. One is because when I was in high school, there was a guy who wanted to trade cars with me, and my dad wouldn't let me. His car was a black interior, 446 pack with a pistol grip shifter Challenger. And the guy wanted to trade me straight up because mine was the fastest car at school. And my dad said, "You're not trading your car." And I said, "Oh, come on, Dad." And he goes, "Nope." And so otherwise I might have had that car today. So then I tried selling the car, and I kept racing, and then I started racing for money, and I realized, wait, I'm making more money keeping the car and, out at the airport on Saturday nights racing. And so I ended up keeping it. And the only reason I probably still have it today is because back in probably about 83, 84, something like that, I was in pro street mode, and I took the body off the frame, built a body dolly, bought every part. And that's when I moved to California, and it sits in my building over in Arizona right now with every part to make it into a 1980s era pro street car, brand new in the box, and the body's on a dolly. And the joke with all my friends is that when you took that thing apart, it was a high mileage muscle car. Now it's a low mileage original, because I've got all the factory parts too, and I never tubbed it. The aluminum tubs are sitting there next to it. The McCreary grooved slicks and the weld wheels that are 15 by 15, all the gold Moroso valve covers, the electric drive. I mean, everything Moroso, and I'm talking every single part is brand new in the box sitting over there. And so now I'm glad I didn't do it because I got other plans for it, and I'm making room to bring it over here and kind of finish it now finally.
You're probably sitting on a gold mine of NOS Pro Street parts.
Mm-hmm. Gold mine because they're gold Moroso valve covers.
Right. I'm not going to give too much away, but I will hint at the fact that there is going to be a certain vehicle at the SEMA show this year that I think is going to help bring those gold Moroso valve covers back.
All right.
So
well, I'll be right there with them.
I figured I'd give you the heads up. I don't know if that counts as insider trading, but...
Exactly.
I remember that back in that day when Moroso was the company. I mean, I had a 69 Camaro. I bought so much Moroso stuff for that car.
I mean, you had to have Moroso stuff, or you weren't anybody. Remember?
Right.
It was like, and then Milodon. Milodon was cool too, but it wasn't Moroso.
It wasn't Moroso. It wasn't Moroso. Yep.
And I remember on my 71 El Camino, I went all chrome. Everything on the Chevelle was the gold. I went crazy with that. I mean, I took the car apart, and all of the suspension was gold irradiated so that it was matching, And I mean, it's got the 2.5-inch, hooker headers with the one slip pipe that goes around the frame and everything.
Right.
And yeah,
right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Brad knows about those headers.
Yeah.
Did you have a set of those?
Yeah, I built my dad a 72 Camino, and it had 2 1/8 or 2 1/4 inch primaries that had those. And
yes.
Oh, yeah.
They're a pain, aren't they?
Oh God, you got to stand the car up on its nose and do a circle, and it's like ridiculous trying to put those things on.
We always laugh
and that's
because
just
it's
the initial install. Then if you got to service the car or anything, I had a set on another car I owned, and the first time I went to change the oil, I went, hey, wait a minute. It's like the oil filter's encased in there. And I go, I never thought about that.
It's crazy how it's easier to put headers on a big block first-gen Camaro than it is a Chevelle. And Chevelle's got more room. I mean, so you'd think it would have more room. It's a bigger car.
Yeah.
Man.
Headers suck.
Hey, I went with Sanderson Shorties. Best thing I ever did. Yeah, I lose a couple horsepower, but made my life. I didn't scrape on the freeway. Didn't scrape on, speed bumps, and they don't hang down. They don't look ugly from 20 feet when you look at the side of the car. Everything about them was great.
Yeah. And probably you didn't have all the hassle of having to go back and constantly retorque stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing like that.
All the good stuff.
They're leaking again. They're always leaking.
Or trying to figure out how you're going to reuse like a factory alternator bracket or a power steering pump bracket and run it to a longer bolt on the front header. Yeah, forget it.
Yep.
Never again.
All the good stuff, man. All the good stuff. So.
Yeah. Everybody always ran that one spacer under that front header bolt on the driver's side.
Or you make one out of like 15 washers.
Well, when Mr. Gasket came out with those little lock washers, they still didn't work. I ran down, bought a bunch of those, changed everything out, spent like a half a day doing it, and then a week later they were loose again. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, Of
course.
Those were $7.95, man. Do you think I'm made of money?
Oh my God, it's the best. Or it's even better when you're young and starting out, and you don't know if that's an exhaust leak or a lifter tick. And you're just kind of like, well, they're all just kind of working in symphony. It's great.
So anyways, the big part of that story is that I had 2 cars back then, and I had to get rid of one of them. I kept the Chevelle, and I offed the junky old 275 GTO Ferrari that was sitting in there. And, I think it was a good choice. I think keeping the Chevelle was a much better choice.
Definitely.
What, you guys don't think I made a good choice?
No, I like your choice. But being a Mopar guy, here's where I'm at. I tell you, I just keep thinking about the trade. I'm going, man.
I know. But see, you have to remember that my Chevelle, at the time, it was the fastest car at my high school. I mean, literally, guys would show up at my high school. I'd be pulling in to go to school, and there'd be like I can remember, like it was yesterday. One day there was a dark green 69 GTX sitting there, and he'd come over from some other school, and I pull in, and you couldn't miss my car because it was bright orange. And back in the late 70s, there were not orange cars. Everybody had blue, black, red, and so I painted it 74 Vega orange, and it stuck out like a sore thumb. So I come pulling in, and this guy gets out, and this guy's like, I don't know. He looked like he was 30 at the time. He was probably 22. Just looked older, And he's like, "Yeah, I hear your car's fast. You want to run them?" And I'm like, "I'm like going to school, And he's like, "Come on, man, And so, he lays $20 on his hood, and I go, "I'll take your $20 before I go to school, before I go to homeroom." And the same thing would happen at lunchtime. There'd be some guy in a 70 Camaro or a whatever show up, and I'd sneak out, and I'd race right in front of the school. And I think back on it, and I think, this is so crazy because we had like, the guys who monitored so people didn't go out to lunch and stuff. And I'd just walk right past them and they'd let me walk past them because they thought it was cool. I was racing. They weren't teachers. They were like, the school security or the school monitors or whatever. And I'd like race somebody and then come back and go back to, class. And it was like, it was weird. When I think back on it at the time, I thought, hey, this is cool. But it was fun. And so when you talk about that Challenger, it was like that guy wanted my car because it was fast, and his was just a stock old 6-pack 440. Everybody had them,
I just think it's funny, though, that you're out there racing between classes. Mr. Fanshaw, you're late for physics class. It's like, I just got done laying down a physics lesson out in front of the school. It's okay.
Here's $20. Don't worry about it.
I will tell you a story that it's one of those where you're kind of proud of it, but not proud of it. Because you think back and you think, wow, it was so dangerous. But a guy showed up with a KZ1000 one day, and he said, hey, man, I want to run you. And so this was a little bit later. I had nitrous. I had the very first car in town with nitrous. And I was managing the speed shop. Let me take that back. I was working at the speed shop. And a guy from NOS came in, a sales rep, and he was telling us all about it. And I was like, that's cool, really? It'll do that? And so he goes, yeah, I'll sell you one at cost if you want it. And it was just the very basic, under the carb, just a single jet plate with a bottle. And so I thought, man, if I can get 300 horsepower, why not? And it made my car so fast. That big block with a nitrous spray and a power glide with a 2500 stall converter, and I had 488s in the back. So that thing was wicked, and this dude shows up one day, and it was right in front of school, and he had a KZ1000 with a Kirker power pipe and everything. And I'm like, God, there's no way I can beat this thing. This thing, bikes are fast. You can't beat them. And so I negotiated, a 3-car length head start, and so we went, and he's coming on me so hard. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to beat this guy. But if I drift a little towards his lane, and all of a sudden you saw that thing go, and then I just kept going. And by the time he realized I wasn't coming in his lane, I was just drifting a little bit. I'd already won. So it worked. But because, when you're on a motorcycle and a car's drifting towards your lane, you don't want to take the chance. You slow down. And that never worked again because then, the guy was smarter than that. But
what was it, the professional wrestler Jesse the Body Ventura? See, we'll keep this all around the same timeline for you. What is it he used to say? It was like, win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat.
I thought you were going to say how he said that Brad Fanshaw's Chevelle was super fast. So.
I had that poster on my wall. It was him.
Yeah.
Chevelle.
That bright orange car is as fast as it looks. Now, it was, and what's so funny is that I thought my car was so fast, and there were other cars. I mean, where are all you guys from?
I'm from Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, so
Southern
the
California.
Midwest. And I mean, Brad's California, and Brian, you're in Arizona, right?
I'm in Arizona, but I grew up in Buffalo, New York.
Okay, well, yeah, they race back there. And they race out here, but it's like I moved there, and man, street racing was huge. It was, and the cars, because there were a lot of wealthy farmers, and people that know Omaha, Nebraska know that there are a lot of major corporations there, because they would have their call centers, every major hotel, every major insurance company, and all the major airlines. So there's a lot of wealthy executives and stuff. And so the wealthy executives and their kids all had cars. It was very common to see multiple Hemi cars, 446 pack cars, LS6 Chevelles. There was in town a lightweight Galaxy, a factory lightweight car. There was a factory lightweight Hemi GTX, and Then there were the modified cars. Then there were the guys that were running 9-second street cars back then. And I mean, these things were just, full on drag cars for the street and doing wheel stands and stuff. And it's funny. I think the only reason my car got a reputation is because it looked, with the orange paint, it looked so different. And it was fast, but it wasn't like any of those cars. I mean, some of those cars were just crazy fast. But it was fun. It was great, man. It was a lot of fun. All you asked me was, what was the first car that influenced me? And I went off on this diatribe.
That's awesome.
You're a car guy. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Every story comes down to that. I could have said, hey, what did you eat for lunch this one day? And you're going to go back, okay, what car did I have that day?
Yeah.
So with that car being orange, was that color, because I know that color seems to come up an awful lot in your branding, especially, with Bondspeed, there was, there's some orange there. Is that an ongoing theme in your life? Do you have kind of well, this is going to sound so dirty if I say, do you have an orange thing, Brad?
Well, being that I am the chairman of the board for the Vitamin C Council of America, it has, it's always kind of been natural.
Well played.
Yeah. No. I have. Orange has always been one of my favorite colors, and you're absolutely right. My watch company, my company Bonneville and Bondspeed, have always used that color as our corporate colors because we, it's one of those colors that in my mind is sporty yet rich. It pops, and because everything looks good in red, everything looks good in black. But if you want to go a little bit different, and so I always try and integrate it somewhere. I mean, the truck that I built for SEMA for GMC that won the GMC Design Award, it had orange. And I've done, probably, numerous other cars that have had orange integrated somewhere. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm an orange fanatic. I admit it.
That's not a bad thing because I personally I've got kind of an affinity for orange too. So I'm with you there. You've got the Chevelle and you decide to paint it orange to stand out. So I guess my big question here then is this kind of the genesis of your wanting to try to stand out in life? And is this kind of where, like, I don't know, was your head kind of going into a branding thing at this point? Or did you decide to kind of go that direction career-wise later on? I mean, how do you go from a speed shop to branding and marketing and building all kinds of cool stuff like that?
Wow, that's a mouthful. How do I answer that?
Question,
I mean, yeah. But I mean, I guess everything, I mean, at the end of the day, all of us are into cars because we like speed, we like performance, we like aesthetics, but we like to be, when you're younger, you want to have a cool car so the women will look at you, right? And that everyone else will be jealous of what you have because it's the coolest car, it's the fastest car, it's the coolest bike, whatever it is. From when you got your first Hot Wheels and you had the limited edition one and or your Stingray or your Mongoose or Redline or whatever it was. And I guess for me, I first started thinking, really had cognizant thinking about branding and making an image when I raced BMX, because I had moved to Nebraska from the West Coast where I was on the very cusp of BMX. I mean, I raced side hacks with Scott Bryhop from SE Racing, and I raced with Wheels and Things guys and all the big names, and before they were big names, I mean, like Bob Harrow was a friend of mine, and so I moved to the Midwest and there was nothing going on. There were guys riding BMX bikes, but there was not a single BMX track, and my dad helped me start it, and so we had to start thinking of cool names and kind of branding yourself. I mean, my jersey used to say Bonsai Brad on the back, I mean, and so that's where you start thinking about it because you want to create an image and being a BMX racer and then racing pro and like that, you've got to do that to stick out to sponsors, and you got to do that you got to have wins, but you got to have an image too. And I was the California guy that was in the Midwest, and that's what worked for me. And then BMX was the first thing for a lot of kids that, I talked to so many guys that it was that first thing that you got to customize, you got to go fast, you got to jump, and I mean, it was the thing that kind of set you apart, gave you your individuality. One guy had a red line, one had a mongoose, one had a PK ripper, whatever it was you were into, and then you could get the anodized parts and all the trick stuff.
Right on. And that's a recurring theme, it seems. Everybody we talk to either starts with BMX, skateboarding. It's all kind of in that zone, and then you move into, again, we go back to VWs, mini trucks, or in a lot of cases too, like muscle cars. It's funny how that works.
So I mean, it gave you that freedom, whether it was a skateboard or a BMX bike. It was that first freedom you had where you could just take off and rip around and hang out with your buddies and do whatever you wanted. And that's what it was. And that's what got me, after Nebraska, got me back to the West when I moved back to Arizona, where I call Omaha and Scottsdale kind of home, because my parents always had a home in Scottsdale, and I lived a lot of different places, but we would always move back to Scottsdale. My dad's job had him going out, hiring people all over the country, and then we'd move back. So I might have lived in Denver for a year. I lived in San Diego for a couple of years, and then after high school and college, I went back to Arizona. My parents were back in Arizona, and I was still racing BMX, but I was kind of heavy into cars, of course, and that's when I went to work for the American Bicycle Association, running all the BMX nationals and the sanctioning body and stuff like that.
Right.
So.
Well, see, that's pretty cool. I did not know that about you. That's actually really cool.
It was fun times, man. I was talking to somebody today, and they said, what was the coolest thing about working at ABA and running that? Was it traveling all over, and or was it running the races or doing the photography? I said hell no, man. The best part was building the tracks. I got to run a D30 and push dirt and like do something that every kid wants to do. I mean, it was like I got to learn how to drive this giant front loader and just go in and build tracks and push dirt and pack, and I did my share of damage with that thing too, man. I was at the it's long enough now. I'm sure the statute of limitations has run out, but at the Orange Fairgrounds, because we would rent dirt just like Supercross does, and we would rent the dirt, and when we got there, it was just piles of dirt, and we'd build the track, and then once in a while we would hook up with like the tractor poles or something like that, and we would share the cost of the dirt. Well, in this case, it was the tractor poles. And so everybody leaves, Nationals over, and I'm there all alone. And, we'd already been, working all weekend. Now it's Sunday night at like 8 at night. I'm going to be there till 1 in the morning, because what I would do is flatten everything out, even it, back drag it, and then the tractor pole guys come in the next day and they'd build their monster pit and all that. And so I didn't come into this particular one to build the track. One of the other guys built the track. I just came in, flew in because I had some other stuff going on, and flew in to tear it down. What they forgot to tell me was we were building the track inside of an oval track. They didn't tell me there was a figure eight. And so about 10 o'clock at night, I got the big spotlights going, and I'm listening to my Walkman. I think it had a cassette in it probably. And I'm going along, and all of a sudden I see asphalt going, and I go, and I stop, and I go, oh shit! So I jump out, I turn on all the floods, and I look, and I go. So I call the guy at his house. I actually, and back then I had to go to a payphone, call him up, and I go, Bill, He goes, oh yeah, that's a figure 8 under there. Don't go too deep. And I go, I already did. He goes, oh shit. And I go, yeah, man. I said, I think I took like 20 feet of asphalt up. And he goes, we'll back drag it all, pack it really good. We'll blame it on the monster truck guy. And that's what I did. And, but there was another time we were in Louisiana, and the guy who taught me was awesome. He actually was one of the most renowned golf course and man-made lake builders in the world. And I mean, they would fly him around to build like these golf courses in the Middle East, and Jack Nicholson designed and all this stuff. And so he was awesome. We're in Louisiana, and we're building the giant starting hill. And, you know, we would pile dirt, pack it, pile dirt, pack it. Well, we were on the very last, and I'm driving this giant front loader. And what we would do is you'd put the bucket high in the air, and we would just roll back and forth, and pack it. And I went up to and I got all the way to the top, and there was an air pocket, and the front, what would be like on a normal car, driver's side front tire, hit this air pocket, and the whole thing just like went on its side. And normally what you would do is you would drop the bucket, and that would stop it from falling, but it happened so quick. Bill probably would have grabbed it. I wasn't that good at driving them. And so I wound up in the first like 5 rows of bleachers in the football stadium in Louisiana. And I'm laying there sideways, took out the front railing, took out all these bleacher seats and everything. And I'm like, oh, crap. And so I get out of the thing, and I walk out the parking lot, find Bill, who's out there talking to the dump truck guys bringing dirt in. And I tell him what happened. He goes, yeah, that happens. He goes, let's go in and look at it. And by the time we get in there, the manager of the stadium's already in there with 2 estimators estimating what's going to happen. You know, how much, 5 rows of seats and this and that. And Bill goes, why don't you just hold on? We're not done here yet. And the guy looks at him, what do you mean? He goes, just hold on. And Bill looks around, and he goes, yeah, you did a number on this. He goes, there's only 2 ways of getting this sucker out. And I go, what's that? And he goes, we hire a crane. The crane we got to wait all day for the crane to get here. They got to assemble the boom inside here, and then they lift it, and we back off. And he goes, you know how much that's going to be? That's going to be, oh God. And he goes, the other way is this. And he jumps in, and he starts it up, and he puts the bucket down and just starts smashing like about 5 more rows of seats and backing as he's doing them. And the manager's yelling, and then he gets it uprighted and backs it off the hill. And the manager comes running down, what did you do? And he goes, hey, I'm going to buy them. We were going to buy them anyways. And he goes, it's way cheaper than a crane coming in, and we got a race to run tonight. You know, I mean, it was like, and that was his attitude. And so I learned how to be destructive from him. So.
Productively destructive. See, this is actually good. This is a good marketing thing. You can actually make money being destructive.
But that was probably the best part of that, was building those tracks and learning how to run that big equipment. Because it's just, you know, when you always see them sitting in a lot, you think, wow, wouldn't that be cool? Just jump on it. It is cool. And because what I did there was so different than what everybody else did, that when it grew to that level, it was kind of an honor to be asked to come in, and after all those years, to come back and help them structure everything for the Olympics, which was pretty cool.
That's incredible. You talked about destructive, and now you're getting to something where you did something totally unique. As far as being disruptive goes, that seems to be a common thing with you. I mean, you've done a lot of disruptive things in the industry, and obviously always for the better. I mean, heck, I know a lot of people talk about the story, but you were the first one to take an aftermarket company public.
Yes.
That blows my mind to think about, like, the fact that no one had really thought to do that prior to that. And obviously we'd need 5 or 6 episodes to probably go over just the fundamentals of making a plan like that work.
I mean, let me back up just a little bit, just to kind of set the the groundwork here. I mean, when I moved to California, a friend of mine had started a company called Vision Streetwear, which if you were into skateboarding or sim snowboards or Vision Streetwear clothing and shoes, he had started it, and it had grown in like a year from nothing to $10 million. And he was pulling his hair out. And so it was going bonkers, and I came over and jumped in and got to partner up with him, and we took it from like that point to 120 million in 5 years. And in the course of that time, we literally laid the groundwork for everything that they call the X Games now, because we put skateboarding and snowboarding on TV. We put mountain biking on TV. We put BMX on TV, and we even sponsored drag boat racing and flat track racing and all kinds of stuff. And so we were one of you talk about disruptive. I mean, we put on these huge skateboard events where we would sell out stadiums, and like the Red Hot Chili Peppers would come play. And it was before they were like the giant band they are now. And, we brought in bands like that were just up and coming, and they would play. And so it was really cool. And we grew to a point where it almost got out of control. I mean, it was so huge. And we, for a lot of reasons, the founder of the company, he basically said, man, I really didn't want to build a corporation like this. I want to get back to the roots of skateboarding and stuff. And he's still in it. He still owns, a skateboard distribution company and a truck company. But back then we owned a television production company. We owned, all kinds of stuff. We had the largest television production company, in Orange County. And, so when we sold out of that, and I was a car guy, well, I had started looking at what Boyd Connington was doing. And at the time, Boyd literally was just starting out. I mean, he had already built some iconic cars and was, well on his way, but he only had one CNC machine, and he was kind of, just getting into the building the billet wheels. And although he had built, a number of them, it was not what you guys remember as Boyd's wheels. It was more like one machine, a few sets every week kind of a deal. Well, I went up to his shop a number of times to check things out. I was a car guy. Well, because I was getting out of Vision, I was talking to him, and he wanted to do a clothing company. That's how him and I got together. He wanted to do, like a hot rod clothing company. And he had already teamed up with some guy that had Boyd spend a bunch of money and never went anywhere. And so, I was like, man, what you're doing here could be this. And we went to a bunch of dinners, and he was like, do you really think I could do that? Well, one night he called me and he goes, let's do this. Let's put something together. So, we decided to do it, and we decided to team up, and I would, bring in some capital, and I would bring in my knowledge and all my marketing from the action sports industry and kind of bring it to the automotive aftermarket. And so he called me and he said, hey, I want you to come up and look at this car that we just finished. And it's called Cadzilla. And so I came up, and Cadzilla was getting ready to be loaded on a truck, and he took me from front to back, walked me around that car, showed me every single thing about it. And at the end, we shook hands and we said, let's go into business together. And that's kind of how we did it. And so Cadzilla was literally going out the door that night, and I was coming in the door the next week. And so it was about growing Boyd's and building a company that we built the best wheels, the best cars. We used the cars to market the wheels, and we did our apparel and our motorcycle parts. And at the time, Boyd's wasn't what, everybody thinks of Boyd's as what they saw on TV. And, I always say the most iconic cars and the best craftsmanship came before the TV show. It was, the stuff that we built like Shazoom and Alumacoop and all the hot rods and roadsters and I mean, I could just go down the list of all the cars, but it was a matter of growing that, and then it grew to a point where to take it to the next level, we had to finance it, and that's where the idea of the public offering came up. And people told us, you can't do it. You can't take a company like this public. It's too, design oriented. It's too craftsmanship. It's too this. It's too that. And Edelbrock at the same time was trying to go public, but they were doing it a little bit different way. They had a lot of real estate holdings and things like that. So they were using their real estate portfolio as the crux of it. And I took it a whole different direction. I sold it on that we were an American icon and that we were, building what nobody had ever done before, that we were building the American attitude of ingenuity and taking it on a mass scale with our wheels, our car care line, our apparel, and the cars were basically the marketing tools. And I must have said a good story because they bought into it, and they let us spend a ton of money, and they let us spend a lot of money on attorneys and a lot of money on accountants. And taking a company public is not easy, and it especially was not easy back then. We had to have certified financials. I flew all over the country talking to brokers, and I spent half my life. I say one of the worst things was, Boyd and I hired Chip Foose, and we hired Jesse James, and then all the other guys who you don't know their names that were just incredible craftsmen that worked for us. And those guys got to do all the fun stuff. Like, people always say, well, I don't remember you back then, and Chip would be on Americruise or Chip would be on, and I'd go, yeah, that's because I was keeping the place going and building this, sitting with attorneys and accountants. And trust me, I would have rather been on Americruise or Power Tour or something like that, but I was doing that, and it worked. And we did things that had never been done before. We did at broker meetings at what's called, you do the dog and pony show, where you go out around the country and you talk to finance people, because the one thing that I told Boyd we couldn't do is because Boyd thought everybody who bought a set of Boyd wheels would want to invest in his stock. Boyd thought that every one of our customers would want to invest in our stock. And I said, that'd be the worst thing we ever did. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, when a guy comes in and he's building a hot rod, we don't want him to be looking around and going, those stainless steel fasteners over there, I wonder if they're throwing those away, or, if they're using them right, or, really that guy leaning against the wall, should he be studying that car or should he be polishing on it? We didn't want it to become where they were coming looking at their investment. I wanted them to come and it'd be like Disneyland for cars. So I did what's called an institutional investment, where 90% of our investors were banks, hedge funds, and insurance companies, so that those guys never came in. They just looked at the numbers and the bottom line. But the people who own the stock didn't care about the stuff I just talked about. And that way we didn't have customers getting off in the wrong direction. They could enjoy the cars, enjoy the wheels. And so anyways, that's what we did. But some of the other things we did that were different was these dog and pony shows were usually dry. They'd go in, the accountants would get up, talk about the numbers. And I told the brokers, I said, I want to show a video. Do any of you guys remember the videos that we used to produce and show at our trade show booth at SEMA? Did you ever get to see those?
That was before my time with SEMA.
I can't say I ever did. I can't say that I did, no.
You can probably find them now with YouTube and stuff. I used to produce a video every year called Wild Wheels. And we did a total of 6 of them. And so it would be like, they got more and more advanced over the years. Like the last one I did, it had our big yellow semi driving through the desert, and I had a cameraman on a helicopter, and Smooster came up on it and then blasted past it, and they got really pretty cool. And but it was like a year in the life of Boyd's summed up, and we debut it every year at SEMA. And this was long before iPhones. I mean, we had real film crews and stuff, and but I would do these financial. I would start the video before we talked any numbers. And I did it, and they said, "Nah, we don't do that. That's not how we." I said, "No, let's do it." And by the end, they said, "Oh my God, that was brilliant!" Because how do you tell a guy from New York who's a hedge fund manager who's never even owned a car about selling a $500,000 hot rod or a $6,000 set of wheels? You can't do it unless you show them visually, and that's what we did. And then the other thing that we did that was different from anybody else that now is commonplace was we had gatefolds in the offering prospectus with color photos, and nobody had ever done that. They said, "You don't do that. This is for financial people." And I said, financial people have to understand what we're selling them because the written word's not going to show them. And that was kind of a long way to answer your question, but that's what it was.
Oh, thank you.
That was cool.
Yes.
This is why I like you so much, man. I see you're outside of the box enough. Now, try to imagine what you could do today with as far as like virtual reality. You could bring in a set of goggles for somebody and a fan and have them sitting like riding shotgun in a roadster.
Oh yeah, they could be doing a burnout. They could be doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah, but that's what's fun. It's you got to push the envelope, and that's the thing. I always say I'm an information junkie because I want to know about everything. And sometimes it hinders me in the car world because, I could be a much more proficient welder or I could know how to run a CNC or whatever, but I'm busy trying to learn about everything and then kind of bringing it in, and it's helped me. I mean, it's like when I started my watch company, I went over to Switzerland and people were like, they're not going to talk to you. They don't like Americans and they don't like people that are outside of the watch industry. And I said, well, wait a minute. What do you mean? Why don't they like people that are from outside of the watch industry? I can understand because maybe it's their own little clique, but why don't they like Americans? They go, because they come over, they bring them a watch and they say, oh, I want my watch to look like this, but put my name on the dial. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. So we did a ton of research. And I reached out to people, and I found the guys who were like the best of the best. They were the Boyd Coddington of watch building, and they said they will not even talk to you. And I said, well, how do I get in the door? And they, well, anyways, through a friend of a friend of a friend, I was able to get a sit down with them. And as soon as I started showing them my designs, and then talking to them, they even said, we didn't want to meet with you. We did it as a courtesy, but now we're glad we did. Because their CNCs at their watch factory were the exact same things we built wheels on. They were just smaller. And I was able to teach them things that they could do on their machines that they didn't even know they could do. Because like the bracelet on my watch I showed, and he goes, we can't make that, and I go, yes, you can. And I told him what bit to use, and I told him you got to back drag it. And he goes, oh, wow. And then they tried it. So then we were fast friends, and it really worked out. But because of some of the things we did and the way we approached the watch industry with a whole new outlook, kind of like not knowing any better, today I've got 3 worldwide patents, 2 utility and 1 design on watch building. And, it's like they were even amazed because they said everything's been done in the watch world, but no, it hasn't, and it's just like that with anything, it's, you always take a new look and always just be looking at what people are doing and how they're doing it and how can you apply it to what you're doing. That's all it is.
This is so much better than the way we would have done it. Our group, we would have sent Brad for like 3.5 weeks to develop like a French accent.
Yeah.
But man, so God, see, you're a tough guy to pin because there's so many different ways to go with this. But okay, God, I want to get back to the watch thing because it's super important to me, and obviously very important to you because you've done so much on that. That's incredible. Just backing up a little bit to your time when you were, say, it's like you're developing, basically you developed an entire marketing plan to go in front of investors with the Boyd brand.
Yeah.
Everything you did back then almost seems to be coming full circle now when you look at the SEMA show and you look at how people are branding their shops, the wave of reality TV, take it for good or bad. All this stuff really comes back down to kind of having branding in place as a major thing. And that was almost unheard of for the longest time. I mean, sure, you had guys like, George Barris, who was out there doing all kinds of stuff for magazines. He understood the value of media. But like the things that you did really kind of turned it around. You brought kind of a boutique level of marketing into an industry that really wasn't all about that at all. And I can't say enough just how that, that shocks me. It knocks my legs out from under me because I'm a big fan of branding. I live for that stuff. And to me, it's like the coolest thing in the world, when you're able to take something and just find out what it is at its core and find a way to package that and present it to someone who knows nothing about it. And for lack of a better explanation, you really made that whole Hot Rods by Boyd brand, that was kind of a Starbucks coffee of hot rodding because it was more of an experience.
Oh, well, hey, wait, let's just end the podcast right there on that note. Hey, thank you. No, thank you. No, that's
all right,
a
Don, hey, good night. Thanks a lot. No, you really did. Because I remember buying, and I still remember buying my first Hot Rods by Boyd shirt. And it's just a weird thing, the whole, that Shop Rags brand and everything like that. And it's weird to think about because I bought so many shirts over the years and I couldn't tell you when I bought those. And to this day, I remember that and I kind of hung out of that because to me, that was the pinnacle of hot rod building. There was nothing higher in the country at that point.
Well, I appreciate you recognizing that. And it was. We were trying to take it. I really came in with that action sports attitude, which is if you can sell surfing to somebody on the East Coast, in the Midwest, and you can, literally a guy buys a surfboard to hang on his wall or buys all the, the OP or the Quicksilver or whatever. And that's what, when you talk to anybody in action sports, they always go back to like Quicksilver because they were the first brand to sell surfing around the world, but especially in places where you can't surf. And we took that with skateboarding. But when I came in with that attitude, the very first thing I coined was the Boyd look because I looked at what Boyd was doing and he was so close to it and he was a machinist and Boyd was such a, remarkable guy as far as his eye and everything like that. And Boyd and I used to say, because Boyd and I would banter back and forth about cars and, it would be that we would get frustrated because neither of us can draw stick people, but we knew what we needed that car to look like. And he was the guy with the color, and I learned color, a lot of my color, from him. And the thing is we needed someone to execute that because I always told Boyd, we're conceptual designers. We can't draw. We can just see it in our head. And, you guys know that being around car world, there are guys that can't even see it in their head. Customers of mine all the time, you'll go, so imagine it with, like if you painted it this color, shaved it, and they're like, that blank stare comes over their face like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so we were conceptual designers. But the first thing I knew was Boyd had that distinctive look in his cars. And so we came up with the Boyd look and we created that logo. And that was kind of the very first thing. And then we just progressed from there, as you said, and I kept trying to coin things, the apparel, the Shop Rags apparel, when I came up with that, and I put labels in it, Boyd Coddington, because I wanted people to say, this isn't another T-shirt you buy at the Hot Rod Show or the car show. It's actually a piece of apparel, and that hot rodding custom cars have gotten to a new level. And then when we came out with the Boyd's Ultraviolet, I came up with that name and Boyd goes, what's ultraviolet? And I go, it doesn't really mean anything, but when people think of ultraviolet rays, we want them to think that this is something that, it's, out in the sun, it's going to look good. And we were using purple on so many cars at that time. It worked really well. And even there, the packaging, we made sure we got really expensive metallic looking bottles. And I don't know if any of you ever got to see the carts that I worked with Little John, which if anybody's got one out there, I would love to have one. We made 2 of them. Did you ever see any of those?
I have not.
The carts for which?
Okay, so what I did to launch Boyd's Ultraviolet was I had Little John Butera make 2 billet aluminum carts. And
like
they had,
detail carts or?
Like detail carts, but they were completely machined from billet aluminum.
It seems like I remember one. I don't know where. I don't remember when. I mean, it was a long time ago, but
it was. And what we did was Little John executed the design famously, like he did everything. And it was what am I trying to say? Oh, well, there were 3 shelves. And they were machined out of billet aluminum, and the bottles each had their own slot machine that were the shape of the bottle, and you could fit about 16 bottles in each one. The handles came up, and they were anodized purple with lime green anodized grips, and then they had bicycle tires, and they had Boyd wheels that were the size of bicycle tires, and these things would sit out in front of our semis. And then what we did at Good Guys events is we had some girls wearing Boyd's Ultraviolet T-shirts. They would walk around the show wheeling these carts, and they would walk up and they'd go, "Hey, can I put tire dressing on your tires?" And what guy would go, no, you can't. They would go, "Oh, sure." And then while she was doing it, she'd tell them all about Boyd's Ultraviolet, and they'd come over to the truck and buy some. And we did that for about 5 or 6 shows till Gary Metters went, "Hey, you guys, Eagle One pays to be the official car care supplier of, you can't be doing that anymore." And we were like, "Oh, okay." But we left them out, and by that time, they were sitting out. People came over, "Oh my God, you got to check out the cart." And they were like hot rods, I mean, they were just so cool. And that was the kind of stuff we did just to kind of, push it outside farther than anybody else had ever done, because it kept people talking about, not just because there's lots of guys building cool cars, and there's lots of guys building wheels, but we had to keep pushing it and doing something that was kind of outside of the envelope,
So you guys even, well, maybe not consciously at the point, but you even elevated the whole booth babe idea. Nicely done.
Well, I mean, and even like the semis, I mean, we had those Canapa semis, and we built these incredible, displays outside them. I mean, I put a lot of thought into it. Like, we did one year, I don't even know if, I've never even searched this or anything, but we did we started to the point when we had the yellow semi go out on the road, we named the tour, just like a concert tour. We called it the Boyd Zone Tour, and we would invite people to the Boyd Zone. We'd hand out Boyd Zone stickers, and we had T-shirts, and our customers would get a laminate, and it was, it was to create an atmosphere of when you were buying a set of Boyd's wheels or you owned a Boyd car, you became part of something. You weren't just buying a product, you were buying into our whole lifestyle.
And that right there, that kind of captures the whole essence of hot rodding to begin with. Because, I mean, okay, beyond the whole dig me aspect, like we talked about, you build a cool car when you're a kid because you want to get the girls. Later on, it's kind of weird because you want just the attention of anybody. I mean, the name of that whole game is Dig Me. And you really found a way to, and you didn't just, I don't want to cheapen it by saying you found a way to let people buy their way in, because that's kind of ridiculous. But, I mean, you found a way, again, it goes back to that Starbucks thing. You guys were like that, as a friend of mine puts it, if you think of iconic coffee cups to have in your hand, yeah, there's the Starbucks, there, all that kind of stuff. But if you have one of those New York City type, just the plain white coffee cup, from whatever cart you bought that coffee of, there's a whole status thing to it. And it's the experience of holding that cup of coffee. you kind of did that with hot rodding, and you really brought it to a really huge market. Like I said, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass because that's the last thing I ever want to do on this podcast. I mean, I'd much rather, I'd rather pick a fight with you, man. But it's like you kind of invented what is the modern marketing tool for hot rodding. And that's really cool.
I hope we did it for a lot of stuff, because I've talked to people over the years. I mean, even like, I don't want to assume anything. Did you guys ever see the billet aluminum guitar that we made?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And I mean, that elevated it to a whole nother level, because I was fortunate enough to, be friends with Michael Anthony and Sammy and all those guys, and they invited me down to Cabo, and I went down there, and we were out on a deep sea fishing boat, and we were sitting there, and we started talking about hot rods, and I said, man, it would be so cool if we could build a billet aluminum guitar. I said, but it would never work. And Michael he goes, yeah, because it wouldn't resonate. He goes, we need the resonation. And he goes, I think aluminum would just be too tinny or something. Well, his guitar tech was with us. And without like one step, he just looked over and he goes, oh, I know he could do it. You use a neck through bass and just build around it. Then the neck through does the resonation. And at the time, I wasn't even smart enough to know what a neck through bass was. I go, well, what's that? And he goes, have you ever seen one of those stick basses where it doesn't have a body? It's just the strings on like a stick. And I go, yeah. And he goes, that's a neck through bass. He goes, that's really where you get your resonation. The rest is all decoration. And he goes, it's the pickups and the wood that they're connected to. And I said, okay. And I go, so we could do it. And he goes, yeah. So I went back and I said to Boyd, Boyd, we're going to build a billet aluminum guitar, man. This is going to be the biggest thing ever. People are going to freak out, and I'm going to blow it up with this thing. And I probably didn't say blow it up because that wasn't even a term back then. So yeah,
you just literally went from Gary Vaynerchuk to like Jeff Spicoli. That was pretty cool.
It's going to be so bitchin'.
Yeah. I said it's going to be rad. So anyways, I started, thinking about how to do this, and I made a list of everything this guitar should embody. And I said, it's got to have everything a hot rod has. It has to have wire. It has to have glass. It's got to have, our colors. It's got to have flames. It's got to have keys. It's got to have rubber. It's got to have a wheel, but it's got to do it tastefully. So I said to Boyd, Boyd, so here's what I'm thinking. We do this. And I said, I'll get a hold of my friends over at the Hard Rock. And I said, we'll build 2 of them, and we'll donate 1 to the Hard Rock so that they can put it on display. That'll get our name in the Hard Rock. And I said, and then we'll give 1 to Michael Anthony, and he can play it on stage. And Boyd was like, he goes, is Mike going to pay for this? And I said, no. And Boyd went, can I cuss on this show? And he goes, because Boyd went, no fucking way. And I went, are you nuts? No, this would be the coolest thing ever. He goes, no, because you're nuts, a guitar. And he walked out of my office. So, like a lot of things I did with Boyd, I waited a couple days and I reapproached it a different way. I went down to Chip's office and I said, hey, Chip, here's my idea. This, and this. Why don't you do a couple drawings? And so Chip whipped up a couple drawings, initial ones, and took it back into Boyd. And I said, Boyd, I talked to the guys at the Hard Rock. They'd be into it. They'd be up for this. And look at how this thing could look. And then I told them the whole thing again about it's everything that and I flipped over the drawing, and embedded in the back was a Boyd wheel. And I said, and look at the shape. I said, the shape is the shape of a one-piece woman's bathing suit. So we got everything. We got sex, rock and roll, wheels, everything. And he goes, yeah, I don't know. Let me think about it. And I said, no, let's do it. Let's just get it going. And I said, trust me on this one, Boyd. I said, it's going to work. And he goes, it better. And it cost us a lot of money. Because it became like this major project. I got Michael down to the shop, did photos of us, and and we could only CNC the basic, body. Everything else had to be hand sanded and hand shaped with files. So we had hours and hours, and then we sourced the ribbon glass and we recut the keys in the head so that it would look like car keys, and then we hooked up with Mike's guitar guy who, did all the guts and did all the wiring and everything. And in $1989 or whatever year it was, I think we had about 20 grand a piece into them, which was a lot of money. And Boyd was like, "It is better." Yeah, he goes, "I can't believe you talked me into this." And I said, "Boyd," I said, this is going to come back. This is going to be great. And so we did the big party. There was a Hard Rock Cafe in Newport Beach at the time, and I lined it up big time, man. We lined up 4 or 5 hot rods. We had the who's who of the industry there. We had the press there, and I had it all worked out where I came pulling in one hot rod. Then Boyd came pulling in, another guest of ours pulled in another hot rod, and then Boyd and Michael pulled in a roadster, and they jumped out, and we did the official presentation of the guitar right in front of the Hard Rock sign, and then we had a party, and then we presented the Hard Rock with theirs to put on the wall, and it was huge. It was great, but I think Boyd was still a little bit hesitant. All the money we had spent to give away 2 guitars, we didn't make any money on it until a week later when Tim Allen. I actually got a call from Tim Allen. He goes, "Hey, I'm going to be on Jay Leno." And we had known Tim because we had put the Alumacoupe on his show where it raced his hot rod on the show. Right. And he called me and he goes, "Hey, Brad, do you think we could get some slides of that guitar that you guys built?" He goes, "Because I want to bring it up on the show when I'm on with Jay." And so there he is. He's on, and he goes, "Hey, Jay, did you hear about Boyd Connington?" And Jay goes, "Oh, Boyd Connington, that hot rod builder, he's like the best in the world." And Tim goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Did you see that billet aluminum guitar?" And Jay goes, they had it all planned. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "That thing." And he goes right into it. A shot of it shows up. Well, right after that, we got inundated by every media outlet wanting to know about it. It was in everything from Playboy magazine to Esquire, and not to mention every car magazine in the world. And we got probably $200,000 worth of publicity, if not more, out of it. And then we toured it around for, a year with the cars and at SEMA and everything like that. So, that thing was a pretty cool, publicity stunt, basically. It became kind of like an icon.
That's badass. So, an 89 year out there doing a hot rod themed guitar, and less than 20 years later, there's a TV show with a company that's doing, guitar themed motorcycles. So, you hit your finger right on the pulse of where to go as far as branding went, and how to get a lot of mileage out of a product or placing something somewhere. So if you had to give advice today to someone who's coming up, because we're about 65 or so days out from the SEMA show, and say you've got a young shop coming up and they're looking for a way to kind of make their mark. Obviously you hope that they have talent first of all. So if there's somebody coming up and they have, they're grassroots, they're working on a shoestring, what would be your suggestion? I mean, without giving too much away, because this is a good way to make a living being an image consultant, but someone who's trying to make their mark there and kind of hit there without being, for lack of a better word, a douche on the SEMA floor, which seems to happen quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, they should call me at 1-800. No, they should.
Exactly.
No,
we should start there.
The main thing is that you've got, what I always say is you've got to break through the marketing clutter. SEMA is one of the most notorious for having marketing noise. You walk through there, and how many times have you walked across the floor and you didn't even see that incredible car or that incredible booth because there's so much marketing noise that you just missed it. So you got to do your job, and it's not just at SEMA. If I'm building a car, and I'm gonna brag about something I've done since Boyd's. There, Pete Shaporis, Bobby Alloway paid me probably one of the nicest compliments ever, and it wasn't until recent years. I've been friends with those guys for decades, but they always thought of me as the business guy at Boyd's. They respected what I did. Pete and Bobby came up to me at the Reno Hot August Nights about 4 or 5 years ago, and I had just finished filming Car Warriors, and he came up and he goes, I've known you for years. I always knew you were the business guy. I always knew you were the marketing guy. And he goes, but I just neglected to notice you as a car fabricator, builder, and designer. And he goes, after Bobby pointed out some of your SEMA cars that you'd built, and I saw them, and he goes, I gotta say, I didn't realize you were really hands-on. And he goes, then when I watched you on Car Warriors and I saw you actually doing everything and building and welding and grinding and how you jumped in, he goes, I just had a whole new look at you. And I said, Pete, I appreciate that from you, man, because you're the man, and Bobby Alloway. And so what I'm getting at is that when I would build a car like, my car that won the GM Design Award or my car that won the Ford Design Award, it's more than just building that car, plopping it on the floor. You've got to market it beforehand. You've got to market it during, and you got to market it after. And so if that's a product, a car, and see, builders are probably the worst guys at that because they think, I'm going to build the most badass XYZ car. I'm going to take it there. Everybody's jaw's going to drop, and I'm going to be famous. Well, no, it doesn't happen because there might be a lot of people that take pictures of it, thinks it's cool, but they don't ever put two and two together. So if you built that car, you better let them know who built it. And without being a douche, like you said, standing there going, yeah, me, I. And, and what that means is that, and it's easier nowadays with social media, where you dedicate some social media to what you're doing and debuting it, build up the hype, make sure you come by the Phillips booth and see the Nova I built or the 32 I built, whatever it is, and do an unveiling. Even if yours isn't one of the unveilings on the schedule or anything like that, make something special out of it. Make sure you hit up all your buddies and say, hey man, you know what? I know you've already seen my car 100 times and you saw it in the trailer, but come over so that it looks like a crowd because a crowd draws a crowd. Exactly. And then, because the hottest nightclubs are the ones with the lines outside of them, and so that's what you got to do. But then that's when you got to grab the guys from the companies that you want to work with in the future and go, hey, I just wanted to let you know I built a really cool car. I'm pretty proud of it. Can I take you over and see it? Or would you drop by booth such and such and check it out? And because you got to build your own brand and you got to build your own marketing. And if you don't do that, set that groundwork and that foundation, it doesn't matter what you do afterwards. And that's what I think you're getting at, is that you got to break through that clutter. And you've got, even if you're part of like the Ford booth, if you built a Ford car and you're in there, make sure you're marketing what you're doing from within the Ford booth or within whatever booth you're in, because so many people, they go, hey man, my car's going to be in the so-and-so booth, the Holly booth or whatever. And then they go out with their buddies and go walking around and hanging out. And it's the same thing as marketing your car at an auction. The guys who can sign a car to Barrett-Jackson, and I've had this conversation many, many times because I've sold and bought lots of cars at Barrett-Jackson. And, Troy Trepanier called me the first time he was selling a car. He goes, Brad, give me some tips. And he listened. But there's a lot of guys who ask me and then they don't listen. They go up, they're over at the bar drinking with their buddies, and I'm going, hey, isn't your car? Yeah, they're putting my car through. I'm going to see what it's going to go for. No, you got to be in the staging lanes, talking that thing up, telling people how special it is, getting them hyped, and you got to pre-market it, and you got to stand up there on stage. So if some guy's got a last-minute question, you can answer it, and you got to do that, or it's never gonna. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is gonna.
Going back to like the MySpace days, when I started my studio, there were maybe a handful of us out there who were doing renderings for people and working as design consultants on cars. And it's just funny to bring up MySpace because you think, glittery stuff.
I know.
It's sad. And
you were on the
pathetic,
cutting edge back then, though.
But that was
Eddie had glittery stuff too, so don't.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you can do a glittery unicorn.
It was back when you were doing those satin jackets, right?
Ooh. me and the rest of the pink ladies were hanging out on MySpace.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like to build a brand back then, I remember posting every week. I would do just close up after close up of my work and show, hey, you can see a lug nut in my wheel versus, some other guy who's just scribbling a wheel together.
Yeah.
And I remember building that brand and going, okay, now I've got to put out T-shirts. And every day it was like starting from scratch.
And I love your stuff, by the way.
Well,
I
thank you.
dig the whole look. Yeah, the vibe and everything. It's cool.
Thank you. Come from you. That's huge. I'm done now. We can shut this one down. That's going to be the podcast with 5 endings. Oh, that sounds really dirty. Keep that one in mind. I've got a great idea for an adult show.
There we go.
But yeah, like just what you said though, it's about getting out there, differentiating something, making that known, and then trying to capitalize and build upon that. I think a lot of that again falls back on that experience thing. As hot rod people, I mean, cars aren't meant to be just a stationary thing. There's a whole aspect of motion and things like that go with it. It's kinetic. So I think if you can find any way to capture that, you've got a huge leg up on the competition. But speaking of having things in motion, you do that to this day. I mean, you've got podcasts, you've got a ton of TV stuff in the works. You seem to always be working on something new there. Is there? We'll get back to the podcasts in a second because I want to hype those for you.
Okay.
But do you have anything going on now that you can talk about as far as TV projects?
Yeah, I can't give you the details, but I'm always trying to keep busy, and like I said, I kind of live by that motto of you got to keep pushing the envelope, because if you're not doing it, the old adage of what did you do recently, and so I'm always trying to keep on top of it, and I am, I kind of chuckled when you said that about the TV shows earlier about, like, oh, wow. Yeah. And I'm really trying to work with people, the networks, and work with other production companies in coming up with some shows and have them understand why authenticity is not what they think authenticity is. And that there's different ways of showing. And I've had a little success pushing that boulder up the hill, and along the ways, I've made lots of great contacts. I got a show we just finished. I can't tell you what it is, but it's for Velocity, and my friend Billy F. Gibbons. We put him together with the show, and he's gonna do some really cool stuff with that. And then I've got another show that I'm working on that is. It's a mashup show. It's bringing different builders together, and that's about all I can tell you about it. But you guys would really dig it, because it's not one of these where, like, I reached out to friends of mine like Troy Trepanier and Bobby Alloway, guys that you never get to see on TV because they don't have time. They don't have time to do it. And when I reached out to them with this concept, they were all like, well, first of all, Brad, because you're part of it, we would do it. Second of all, it sounds so cool. I would love to be part of it. And it gives guys a chance to work together that have never worked together before. Guys at top of their game. And then I got some other stuff that's totally off the wall. Some travel oriented stuff that I'm working on. Another one that's about business and marketing, what we were talking about. And that's what, keeps it interesting, because I've got to work with guys like Tom Beers, and I just finished a project with him. And if you have ever seen Deadliest Catch, or you ever saw Monster Garage, or you ever saw any of Jesse's shows, or Storage Wars, Tom Beers is the brains behind all those shows, plus hundreds of other ones. And now I'm working. I worked last summer. I worked on a show that would have been so cool, guys. And it's amazing to watch it, like I get to watch it, because I was called in to be the automotive consultant. I designed over 25 cars for this show, all built these character back studies and everything, so that the cars were designed to mimic the characters. And it was a racing show, kind of. And the best way I can describe it is if you combined monster trucks and all-star wrestling. And it was one of the coolest concepts. And we actually got to build some of the cars. I got to build an El Camino that I designed, a 70 El Camino with a blown big block that was a 4x4 that actually, I mean, literally jumped and handled, and all this trick suspension under it and everything. And there were, I mean, we're talking real serious money. I mean, we're talking well into the 7 figures on developing the show. And it was, I was very excited about it because, first of all, I was a producer, I was the designer, but then later on they had actually hired me to be the main character on it as well. And so I was so excited about it. And then, like so many of them, after all this money was spent, the network said, yeah, it's just not doing it for us. I think we're going to pass. And we're like, you spent all this money? And to this day, the cars we built sit up in Hollywood in a parking garage. And they were due to be filmed I was going to get to drive one, jumping it and doing all kinds of cool stuff at a sand pit where all these iconic TV commercials and TV shows were filmed. And we had gone up, scouted everything, and they axed it right before we got to do that. And so I've got T-shirts, I've got a helmet, I've got everything, but never got to drive the car. The car got started, driven on and off trailers, and has never gone any farther. So it's a $100,000 car that I got to design and build that will probably, I say someday it'll probably show up at Barrett-Jackson or some auction or something. Well, no, knowing them, it'll probably just go to like the Mannheim auction with all the used cars from the dealerships, and somebody will wind up with it, and because they just don't know. And, it's that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of the TV stuff. I'm really, really trying to be active in the media and take the world of the automotive lifestyle to a whole nother level. And I've had a lot of success, and I consulted on Car Chasers. I was a producer on Car Chasers. I've been on a producer on a couple other shows. I've helped consult, several shows at this point. And, so that's an area I really like. And, I keep really active. You asked me what else I do. It's like a lot of people don't realize that I consult other companies. I mean, most notable was many years back when Barrett-Jackson, was taking the leap onto TV. We came in and did a whole marketing study for them and helped them take it to the next level, and real proud of that. And there's a lot of other companies that we've done stuff for, like Bombardier Jets, where we helped them integrate into automotive racing and Monterey, their whole, interaction up at Monterey during Motor Week. And that's all fun stuff. I really enjoy doing that kind of stuff.
That's outstanding. Oh my God! I'm thinking back to when you mentioned that you're going to have monster trucks though in the show. I was thinking, did you get the opportunity to build the jumps and everything to?
There was a whole stunt division that built. I'm telling you, this thing was off the hook, man. It was such a huge production, and we had a whole stunt division that they were in charge of building the jumps, because we were literally going to race, and I can't give you any more than that, but because it could possibly come back around someday, but we're literally going to race. And so they had to be spectacular, but they had to be realistic. These guys had to really be able to drive, and they had to really be able to jump, and they had to really be able to go through these crazy obstacles, and it was going to be pretty cool. And that's kind of stuff that when you see behind the curtain and you know what could have been, and I think, wow, that would have been so cool. People would have freaked out because it would have taken everything to a whole nother level, and it would have been really cool.
That's bitchin'. I'm just gonna have to wait. I guess we'll have to talk off air, and if you'll let me know which car you think it is that's going to end up at the auction.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, not only that, but I want to know at some point, like, if we should know to look for this car to be like in like a Fast and Furious movie where it's being like launched out of a submarine torpedo tube.
It is. It's that kind of car, and it was so trick and so cool, and we had to do it all under wraps and everything, and then we had all these executives fly out from New York, and they were like, "Oh, it's so loud," and it's like, "Yeah, isn't that great?" We're revving the motor, and we put the headers went straight up through the hood, and so it was just awesome. We put igniters in it so it would throw flames, and it was just fun. It was like building a cartoon car, and that's what was so cool about it. It was like, really, you're gonna pay me to design these cars that are going to be cartoons? And then when they said wanted to build one, I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, I would go up and work with my team, and we'd build this thing, and it was like, we're getting paid to build this thing. This is like crazy. So
living the dream. So speaking of
we're going
TV,
to talk about my podcast now?
That's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I had the greatest slide in for this. I was going to say, speaking of TV, how long until Man Seeks Adventure becomes a TV series?
Funny you'd mention that.
This is awesome.
There's a meeting tomorrow about that, and if it goes well, we'll see what happens. So we've been working on them. We've been working. We would love to see Man Seeks Adventure on TV. So it's. Have you guys all listened to Man Seeks Adventure?
Religiously.
Yes.
Oh, good. I like to hear
a couple of them. Yep.
So we've got one in the can that hasn't even come out yet, where it's Dave and I drive to Gene Winfield's place in the desert, and we just go off and go up in the desert and check out Gene Winfield's and talk about that. But it's fun because we get to do so many cool things, and the team with Man Seeks Adventure with Dave and I, when we started Man Seeks Adventure, because Dave and I would talk about, oh, where were you? Hey, what? And Dave, being the head of global design for Acura and Honda, he's so entrenched in the automotive world, and he's such a car guy, and he loves everything hot rod and muscle car, and a lot of people don't know that Dave is also one of the judges for the Concours d'Elegance at Pebble Beach, which is quite an honor. Wow. And he's one of the featured speakers every year at Eyes on Design in Detroit, which is another really prestigious thing. But when him and I get together, all that goes out the window. We're just drinking booze, eating food, talking cars, talking guy stuff. And so about 3 years ago at the SEMA show, we were doing a live Man Seeks Adventure. We were up on the stage, and we had Heather Storm coming on to promote this new show on Velocity called Garage Squad. And I'd met Heather once, and I was like, oh, yeah, we got this girl coming on. She's going to talk about Garage Squad. And he goes, what's that? And I go, I don't know. I'm looking at the bio. It's something about they go out and they restore guys' cars that aren't getting any love in their garage, and he goes, is she the host or something? I go, yeah. So, we had real low expectations, I'll be honest. And she came on, and we hit it off right away because she could talk cars, she could talk booze, and she loved to go on adventures. And so we just had the greatest time. And so afterwards, Dave and I came in to do a studio thing after the SEMA show, and I looked at him and I said, Dave, I got an idea. I said, what would you think if we had a third host? And he goes, oh, who are you thinking about? And I said, I was thinking about asking Heather Storm. And he goes, well, it sounds good to me. He goes, but it's Man Seeks Adventure. And I go, no, that's what will make the show unique, is if we have a woman's perspective and somebody who can give a shit right back, who can hang with us, who can talk cars with us. And I said, and there's one added benefit. He goes, what's that? And I said, well, she's a mixologist. She can make our drink of the day for every show. And that sold Dave right there. We were like, so Heather started and we've never looked back. The only crimp is when she's in Chicago filming her show. She's not around, but we do have her call in. She does posts for us. She finds places in Chicago, and it's great. But Man Seeks Adventure has been fun. We've been kind of reinventing it, growing it. We've got a lot of great people, like beer and liquor companies that send us stuff to talk about, which is, somebody's got to do it, right? And
you poor guys.
And now we've got car companies having us drive their cars. Like McLaren made me drive their 570S for a week, and
made you drive it.
They did. They twist my now.
So
You know what they told me on Saturday is that they're going to make me drive a McLaren Senna for a week in September.
Ooh.
And I didn't even know they had $1 million. Well, what sold is $1 million car. They sold out, and now they're $3 million. I didn't even realize they would have a McLaren Senna as a press car, let alone I'd get to drive it. So, so we've been getting to drive a lot of cool cars. I've had a Ferrari. I've had the Cadillac CTS-V. I've had the Cadillac CT6. I've had the Acura. It just goes down the line. Lots of great cars, and that's fun. But the one thing we do stress, and I'm very serious about this, is that we never, we're very careful to exercise. You don't drink and drive. That's just, don't be a dick. Don't drink and drive. That's not cool at all. So we call Uber one of our unofficial sponsors, and the car portion and the drinking portion are two separate things. Now, you can eat and drive. That's totally cool. You can do that.
Right. Well, you guys do a really great job of, like, it's weird. Maybe I read too deep into things, or maybe it's just purely by design, and I'm dopey enough to think that it's not, I guess, on the surface enough. But you guys really pair things well. And it's so great because the guests, the location, the drinks, the cars, whatever you're eating at the time, it all ties so well together. And there's like all these weird sub-themes working through the whole thing.
Well, thanks for noticing, because we do try and do that. Yeah. And, well, because it's that, there again, it's part of the marketing, because you want to give someone, you want to give them a whole entire, kind of encapsulate everything, so that they feel like, wow, man, I could do that. I could do what they just talked about on that show. And that's what I want them to feel like. We're looking at things in the future as like Man Seeks Adventure Live. I want to do where, like, everybody who listens to the show meets us at some restaurant or bar, and it's like we actually hang out together, and then we do a show.
Have an impromptu live show, kind of like Kevin Smith used to do with, was it Hollywood Babylon, where they do their live shows. That would be bitchin'. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because
I cut you
off.
No,
I want you to get excited because it would, because then people, they don't have to just listen to it, and it's not just electronic. It's actually bringing the social aspect to life, and people can experience, because there's a lot of people that I've talked to that they go, oh man, you guys are so lucky. You get to go to this place. I go, well, that's why we tell you about it. So you go, wow, I wouldn't want to just show up there. I don't know if and I think, well, like if we did, like we did to that, we just did a show where we're at Pie Dog in Fullerton, a very unassuming place, but it's got this really cool atmosphere, great craft beers, great food. And if we did something at a place like that, it'd be like people could feel like they came and got to meet us and hang out, and they get to meet other people. And, then it becomes more of like a Man Seeks Adventure Live, where everybody there is. That's their adventure, man. They're learning, they're finding out, and they're going through an experience with us, and that's what we would like to do in the future. And if you'd like to sponsor those segments, you can reach out to us. So
nicely done.
But
and where can they reach out to you? We'll make sure this sucker's right out in the open. I'll get it on the website too.
Yeah, no, they can for any of the podcasts, they can just reach me at bfanshaw@bondspeedmedia.com. And we do all the management for Man Seeks Adventure, Shift and Steer, Mike Brewer Behind the Wheel, all of them right there.
Perfect.
His phone number is also in the bathroom stall over here at the pilot truck stop, too.
Oh, yeah.
I knew
Just
it was. It's still
I
there.
saw it at the Flying J.
That might be my old number, though. You know, my new one you got to get. But yeah, and then of course we do Shift and Steer, where I brought Aaron Hagar, Sammy Hagar's son. I tried to originally mash that show up where it was cross culture. You know, Pete Shaporis and I were doing a radio show, and I said, Pete, I want to get rid of the radio show and do a podcast. And he said, what's a podcast? And I said, trust me. And it worked with Boyd, so he trusted me, and it, we never looked back. We brought Aaron in because he was the rat rod guy. We brought Pete in, traditional hot rods, me, the muscle car and hot rod guy, and then Matt D'Andrea, who I'd met through Adam Carolla, and Matt was the press car guy and the Fox body guy. And it just worked because everybody was coming from a different direction, and everybody was enough different that it always kind of seemed to work. Now, when we lost Pete, that just sucked. But the show keeps rolling. We keep having fun with it. And, we do live show every year at SEMA. We'll be doing it again this year. We'll have a stage again. And I'd announce where it was, but we're waiting on the contract. So,
it was fun last year. You guys were in the Magnaflow booth?
Magnaflow, yes. Mm-hmm. We had a big stage at Magnaflow. And if everything goes right, you'll be able to find us there too. But
you guys are getting up on? You guys are almost 150 episodes deep. Shift and Steer?
Just did 149 today. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful! Congratulations.
And,
that's
huge.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations. That's big.
Yeah, it's been fun, and it's always a challenge, as you guys know. And we've done a lot of shows with guests. We've done a lot of shows without guests, and just keep it moving. And then of course the most recent show is Mike Brewer Behind the Wheel, that I do with Mike Brewer from Wheeler Dealers, and it's a totally different show. Have you guys had a chance to listen to that at all?
I have. It's awesome.
Thanks.
I enjoy the hell out of it.
It's Mike's show, and I'm just along for the ride, man. So
and that's a great pairing too. You guys, it's a really good chemistry in that whole deal. That's really smart.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because it's because you never know when you're doing it. You kind of wonder, is this good or not? And the hardest part with Mike is he's so darn busy with his show, and now he's going to be doing another show that it's just hard to get in the studio, and so we're a little infrequent there, and but we'll have more in the future. I think it's we got people asking, when are you going to do another show? And so we have fun doing it. And then we got a new one launching called Pod 5. And but no, so we're having fun. I love the marketing and the branding and consulting other companies and getting involved there. And I love marketing, my Bond Speed wheels and we're real happy that we're one of the top wheel brands in the whole forged wheel market without spending the money that other companies do. It's all word of mouth. It's all Instagram and social media and things like that. So it's Bond Speed Wheels is kind of a dynamo there, without spending the money. We practice what we preach there. Let me put it that way. We do all the marketing kind of more low key. We build the brand through our customer base, and don't have to spend tons of money to do it, to be one of the top companies.
It's crazy. You know, as you're talking, it's like you have more irons in the fire than anybody I know. And so what is a day in the life of Brad Fanshaw? Well, I mean, when you get up, are you automatically working? Do you ever get a break?
I mean, yeah, I try to as much as I can, but, you know, I'm a workaholic. I mean, I'll admit that. And I'm always, even when I'm at home watching TV, I'm probably doing something or researching on my phone or, you know, but, you know, I always say it always sounds like my Facebook life. If my Facebook life was as great as it looks to everybody, man, I'd be the happiest guy in the world. But it's not all that crazy. I mean, because, you know, my watch company is not really active anymore because the economy kind of put a halt to that when the economy went bad and we had spent so much money marketing it. I would have had to reinvest just to bring it back again, and I just wasn't up to doing that because it's so much money to do it. You know, so it's basically my media company and my wheel company. They're my main focus right now. And it is busy, constantly trying to pitch TV shows, constantly trying to keep the podcasts out there and try and find sponsors and people that want to get involved. And, you know, we're always, like anybody, trying to find that one corporate sponsor that goes, wow, we'd like to just underwrite your podcast and have you go to all these good guy shows and go to this and go to that. And, you know, but that didn't happen. You know, every once in a while it shows up, but, you know, you got to be in the right place at the right time and be standing there with the sandwich board that says, hey, we produce the podcast that you need. And, you know, and you guys know that doesn't happen, you know, so, but you're always waiting for what Boyd used to always say. Every time Boyd's cell phone would ring, he used to say, he'd look at me, he goes, this is the big one.
Let's give me the big one.
This is the big one.
and he would say that every single time. We'd be driving in the car, we'd be sitting at dinner, we'd be at a car show, and his phone would ring, and he'd grab it and he'd go, this is the big one. This is the big one. He'd get a grin on his face. And I honestly think he meant it, though. He thought that call was going to be the one that put us over the top, you know? So.
See, and that's that other good side, too. Always looking ahead, thinking, you know, you haven't made it yet, and keeping on striving to go better. That's right there. Then you wrapped up the whole thing. We could have been done with this like an hour ago and just gone, the trick is to never be satisfied.
I told a guy today, I was talking to a producer today, and you asked about Man Six Adventure. I was talking to a producer out of New York, and he goes, can you kind of wrap up your career? Because he said what you guys said. You've done so much. You've had, you know, and I said, dude, I'm going to tell you, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I said, just call it Brad Fanshaw. I'm lucky. I said, and it's not everything I've done. It's all the cool people, talented people that I've got to work with, and all of the great things that I've got to be involved in. I mean, because, you know, I think about it all the time. If I hadn't have met the guy who founded Vision, I would have never been part of skateboard and snowboard history and entertainment history and, you know, all that. And then if I hadn't have met him, I wouldn't have met Boyd. And Boyd wouldn't, and I would have never done all those things. And then if I hadn't have met, you know, I can just keep going down that list. And so it's not about what I've done. It's about the people I've met that have allowed me to be fortunate enough to do all that cool stuff.
That's outstanding. And I like the fact, too, that you're humble. You remember that much. You know, you never forget all the people that came together to make those things happen. And I think that is so important. And I really think it comes across.
What was your name again?
Exactly. My name is Doug. I'm gonna pitch a show to you right now. It's gonna be called Doug Gets Lucky.
There we go. Yeah. Doug rubs elbows, right, and gets some of that luck. So no, I mean, the thing is it's hard to get real serious about it and stuff. And I like humor, but that really is what it's down to. I mean, it's like I always used to tell people that would come up to me at Boyd's and they'd go, "Oh my God, the cars that you and Boyd build are so incredible." I go, wait a minute. I said, the little bit that I have to do with it. Now, the cars that I've built, I'll take full credit for it. But the cars that we built at Boyd's, there were guys that you never knew their first name, that were the most talented craftsmen that built that stuff. And that's what I would tell them. I'd go, no, we got a whole team. It's not Boyd. It's not me. It's not Chip. It's not any single person. It's all those guys collaboratively that built it. And that's how everything is, because, it's just like your podcast. It takes your whole crew to get that thing done. And if it's Holly Carburetors or if it's Barrett Jackson or it's SEMA Show, it's always the team. Yeah, there's usually some face on it that the face or whatever, but it's like the lead singer in a band, it's like that guy, he gets all the accolades and all the girls and all the endorsements, but without the bass player and the drummer, he's never going to be anything. And that's how I look at everything. It's the team and it's also the people you hang out with. That's why I hang out with you guys. Cause it's like, and I'm not just saying that, I'm being serious. I mean, like when we got together at the last SEMA, it was like, I was so happy to see you guys the first day, because it's like you want to hang out with people that are your friends and that have common interests, because man, I've been around so many famous people and I've been lucky, but you see the hanger-oners, the guys that if there was somebody a little bit more famous just around the corner, they'd be hanging with them, not with that guy. And you don't want to hang out with people like that. You want to hang out with people that you can bench race, you can talk, you can say, "Oh man, I lost $50 in the slots and my wife's going to kill me." And they're not going to, tell everybody, especially not your wife. So, but that's kind of how I look at things, guys. I mean, and I think that's what's so cool about the car industry is that I say it all the time. You can walk into a room in Monterey where there's guys that all own $1 million cars, $50 million cars, and a hot rodder can walk in and not feel out of place because he can talk cars. And you can walk into some hot rod place and one of those guys can pull in his Porsche RS, and if he's capable of talking cars, he's still going to have something in common with everybody. And that's the cool thing about the car world.
Exactly. And you'd mentioned, getting together at SEMA last year. I want to say thanks again, because I know you were super busy, and yet you took the time to hang out with us. You made us feel really welcome. I really appreciate that. And I think
I mean, hey, it goes both ways. It's fun, and if you guys snub me this year because I took over your whole podcast, I'll take it real personally. So.
Oh, come on. We would not do
Mental
that.
note.
Yes.
Hey, walk down this aisle. Here comes Brad Fanshaw.
Hard right.
Yeah.
with his hangers on.
yeah, exactly.
It's entourage.
Yeah. I could only wish. But
keep us posted though, as far as where you'll be at the SEMA show this year.
Okay,
so we can
I
get
will.
that out to our 15 listeners. I want to get that stuff out there, just so because I enjoy seeing someone else succeed, and obviously you're succeeding. I love seeing that. And I want people to, if they haven't been listening to your podcasts, get the hell over there and listen to it, because it's really, really good. And figure when you're done with ours, you got, 22 hours left in the day?
Exactly, yeah. So, hey, can I plug my Instagram?
You can plug anything you want. Well, that sounded really dirty, too. This is going sideways all over the place.
Yeah. Hey, no, if you want to follow me on Instagram and see everything I do with my podcast, and get a little taste of that and what I'm out there doing, driving cars and building cars or whatever, I'm Bradley _Fanshaw on Instagram. And yes, I used to be Bond Speed Brad. And then I had this great idea that I was going to be Brad Fanshaw. And then somebody stole it. I let Bond Speed Brad go. And I went to sign up for Brad, and somebody stole it. So now I'm Bradley_Fanshaw.
And if you want to follow me, I am Brad Fanshaw.
Yeah, exactly.
Overscore, Brad.
So I sound very stuffy and official as Bradley Fanshaw, but that's where you can find me, and I have a lot of fun. Put it up, and if you are into photography or anything like that, you can also find me at Photos by Fanshaw on Instagram.
Awesome.
So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, dude.
Yeah, that was fun.
I appreciate you coming back around, and I will do my damnedest to make sure this sucker launches on Friday, as we always try to do. And I'll let you know. This way you can say, hey, go listen to this crap.
No,
like
definitely send me a link and everything, and I'll. I already follow you guys, but send me a link and I'll put it on my social media. I'll put it on Shift and Steer and Man Seeks Adventure, and I'll be all self-indulging and say, listen to Brad on there. So
the other Brad.
Yeah.
And we dug really deep. I found I talked to the manager of a Glamour Shots that you went to back in 1987, and we have a great cover photo for you.
The one at the mall.
It's
that one I know doesn't
focus.
exist, so hopefully you found a good one. But
With a flock of seagulls haircut, dude.
Yeah.
Well, now you will find probably some good mullet shots somewhere on the web, but
well, this
because
one,
I had the full-on mullet, but
this one has quite the soft focus. I can't tell if it's you with a mullet or Sybil Shepherd. So.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I remember that. That's right. I don't know if you guys ever saw the shot that it appeared somewhere. Somebody put it up. It was my wife and I, and we were sitting in my Ferrari, and I had a black Ferrari 348 back in the Boyd days when everything was going huge, and I was like, I got to get a Ferrari. So I got a Ferrari, and then I put. Do you remember those wheels that we made that only had two spokes?
I remember the car, actually.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah. And so I never post any photos of that car because every photo I have of it, I'm sitting in it with this horrible, like, mega mullet. And I'm like, and I think it was, I don't know, somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody found that photo and put it up, and I was like, oh, dude. And he goes, dude, we had the best laugh. You had, like, the biggest mullet. And I go, yeah, I know. It was like the Hollywood mullet, And I was
Billy
like,
Ray Cyrus mullet.
And I think, hey, the way I got my hair cut now, is that going to be like in 10 years and we'll be going, why did I have my hair cut like that?
Yeah. Why did I still have my mullet?
Yeah, exactly. I'm growing the mullet back. Do you think I could grow it by SEMA? What do you think?
I think if you can't
get hair extensions.
I was going to say, we'll start a GoFundMe page and we'll get you the extensions.
Yeah, we'll get you what you need.
Man Seeks Extensions. Oh, this is
Man Seeks Extensions. There you go. So,
hair extensions.
I think I was going to say. I think I saw that
let's make
in
that clear.
Craigslist. So, but all right, guys. Well,
all right. Thank
you very much, and it was fun.
Yes, it was.
It always is, sir. I thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure having you on.
Oh, no. Hey, anytime. And if you're ever in my area, stop by and say hi.
Oh, that's our plan. We're gonna do that. It's gonna be a Thursday night about like 9:30.
Yeah. Trick or treat.
Yeah. No, see, you come by on Saturdays like around 11 a.m. and that's when we're recording Man Seeks Adventure. We got the bar open. We got the, that's when you come by.
No.
So, and the worst is when we try and lay down 2 or 3 Man Seeks Adventures in a day. And you can always tell the third one that we did.
It starts out.
Well, it's like I'm going, okay, well, at the mall the other day, and Rick here in my office, he goes, dude, that was a third show, wasn't it? I go, yeah, it was. How could you tell? He goes, how could I tell? You guys are like laughing hysterically. You don't make hardly any sense. And he goes, you keep losing your train of thought and you're slurring your words. And I go, oh, yeah, that happens because Heather keeps making all these drinks and we've got to drink them, so. But yeah, seriously, though, anytime you want to stop by, just give a holler.
Will do.
All right, guys.
All right, Brad.
Well, thank you, sir.
Talk to you later.
Definitely have a great night. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye. A big thanks again to our awesome guest tonight, Brad Fanshaw, for his time, his insight, and some of the great stories that I don't think I've ever heard before. I'd like to think we packed a lot of living into a couple hours here.
I'm good. I mean, he covered a lot of really good stuff. That was quite insightful in a whole lot of areas.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things about him that most folks that listen to his shows don't know. And I thought it was really fun to kind of dig into that side of him. It was cool. I enjoyed it.
Definitely. And like I said, once we know where they'll be with the Shift and Steer podcast at the SEMA show, we'll get that information out to you guys. That's kind of a fun deal. Hang out there, watch them record live. Heck, we'll let you know where the heck we'll be at the SEMA show. But we'll be talking to you hopefully before then. Unless you stop listening, then we'll, it is what it is. We'll have all the information for Brad's many shows and social accounts and whatnot for you guys on the website. And hey, thanks again for listening. As always, coming out of this one, a slightly better Brian.
A much more learned Brad.
And still the same Alex.
There we go.
I couldn't top that. I had to lay down, man. I was done.
Nobody's going to rub your belly for that one, man.
No.
Thanks again for listening, and be sure to keep up with us gearheads over on our website at www.round6pod.com. And if you'd like to, we invite you to follow along with us over on Facebook, Instagram, and be sure to check out all of our latest videos on youtube.com.